Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to this month's webinar. My name is Julia Van Buren. I am the Education Trustee for the SILA Foundation, and I want to welcome each and every one of you and thank you for joining us. Today, we are very delighted to welcome Todd Rosenfeld. Todd is a very positive thinker, and he brings 3 decades of experience with him in the securities field. Todd is what you would call a securities geek, although he is an expert in this area, so expert's probably a better word. So it's no wonder that he is the Securities Training Corporation, STC's Chief Learning Officer. Now, today we have an hour, so I'm going to ask that everyone, if you have a question, to please place your questions in the chat. Todd will be addressing them throughout the webinar. And if we have time at the end, he'll be able to take some of your questions. Any unanswered questions we will address via email after the webinar. Now, remember, the webinar is being recorded, so please make sure you are muted, okay, so that there's no background noise coming in through the recording. The webinar will be available on the Foundation webinar library first part of next week. And a link to the recording along with the PowerPoint slides will be included in the post-webinar survey communication that you'll be receiving. With that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Todd.
Thank you very much, Julia. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that I'm able to make this presentation. I hope you'll get a lot out of it. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll try to answer some of your questions. If I see a question pop up, I'll try to answer it at that time. If it's not feasible to answer at that time, I'll answer at the end. And it's also possible that your question could be answered at a later part of the presentation. So first, let's get started. The main purpose here is to educate everyone here on the new IAR continuing education requirements. And let's get started. So first thing I want to mention is we live in a world of acronyms. And sometimes people use acronyms without first explaining what they mean. I choose not to do that. So I'm going to take a minute out here and explain a couple of basics to many of you. And if you know it, that's great. If not, hopefully you'll learn something. NASAA is the North American Securities Administrators Association. They are a group of the state administrators who create a lot of the model rules. They're also in charge of 3 licensing exams. Have you ever heard of the Series 63, Series 65, or Series 66 examination? Those are owned by the people at NASAA. They write the questions for those 3 exams. Now, as far as the term IAR, let me just kind of summarize that in just a minute. We've heard of the term broker-dealer. We've heard of the term probably registered representatives of a broker-dealer, but under state law, they refer to those individuals as agents of a broker-dealer. Now, investment advisors are not individuals. Investment advisors are firms. The individuals who represent an investment advisor are called investment advisor reps, otherwise known as IARs. So what are the 5 things we're going to talk about today? Well, what are the new requirements? And why all of a sudden is CE now required where it wasn't required before? Number 2, who does it apply to? And which states, if any, have adopted the model rules that could be applicable either this year, next year, or even going forward? Number 3, what are the specific requirements of the courses and how do firms comply with these requirements? 4th, how will these completions be submitted to FINRA? And last but not least, what are the penalties, if there are any, for taking too long on the courses, too long to pass, or you don't obtain your CE? So those are the 5 things our goal is to answer today. So let's talk about the general requirements. Now, remember, if someone has a Series 63 license only, this would not apply. It applies to someone who would have a Series 65 license or a Series 66 license and is referred to as an IAR investment advisor representative. The general requirements are 12 credit hours per year. So 12 credits. And we'll discuss the specifics of what a credit means in just a few minutes. Now, the 12 hours is broken into two parts. One, 6 hours of what's called products and practices, and 6 hours of ethics and professional responsibility. So you can't have 9 and 3. It's got to be 6 and 6. You can't choose which of the 12. You can choose which ones are the 6 or which ones are the other 6, but there are no standard courses, just those two categories. So the products and practices, new products like complex products, like options, like variable annuities, where the ethics and professional responsibility were like regulation BI, political contributions, things that are more regulatory. Number 2, approvals. Each company that wants to become what's called a CE provider is required to receive approval by what's called the course management vendor, which many of you might be familiar with, and that is Prometric. So NASA created the policy, Prometric administers the policy, and FINRA is the database reporting manager. So everyone's got a unique component here in IAR CE. So STC became an IAR CE provider, and NASA created a list in terms of a criteria what needs to be done. Now, some people ask us, could a firm become a provider? And the answer is yes, they can. As of today, I only know of one firm that is becoming a provider, but they would have to do two things. One, they'd have to become a provider. Number 2, each course that they want to create would also have to be approved. So it's not just the courses, it's the company itself. Both of those. So NASA created this model rule, the finalized plan. And in that plan, they created this model rule, which became effective in January of 2022. And again, as we mentioned, there's no specific course required, but there is a fee that the vendor, such as STC, needs to pay per credit. So if someone has 6 credits, in addition to whatever course fee they might pay, there's a reporting fee that the vendor is required to pay FINRA, and that is $3 per credit. So if the 6 credits, it will be 18. You know, again, it depends on the number. If it's 12, then of course it'd be 36. Okay. Why all of a sudden is IAR CE required? Now I'll give you some chance that you can read the slides on your own as I'm speaking, but I'm not going to simply read what's on the slide. You can do that yourself. So I just want to add some information here. FINRA has CE requirements. The states have requirements for insurance. There's professional designations that also may have continuing education requirements. Why all of a sudden do we want IAR CE? Well, investment advisor representatives have never had in the past any CE requirements. A lot of other entities have had it, but not investment advisor representatives. And investment advisor representatives are a huge component of the financial service industry. Some brokerage firms may not be broker dealers as members of FINRA anymore. They might be moving to a model more advisory. So that's happened over a period of time. So the number of investment advisory firms and IRs has grown over a period of time. And there's unique rules and regulations that apply to advisory rules. There are SEC rules, there are state rules, not FINRA or insurance related rules that only apply to the investment advisor world. So even though FINRA might have its own rule on political contributions, the SEC in the states might have a different rule. And that was never been tested in the continuing education space before. So there are a number of rules and regulations of products or individuals who have not required to take any CE. Sorry about that. Currently, if you're only registered as an investment advisor rep, and that's your only registration, and you're not a professional designation, and you're not licensed to sell insurance, you right now have no CE requirements. And this, by the way, This process has been going on for a number of years. It takes a while for NASA to create this model rule, to hire a company like Prometric and get this practice going. So in my opinion, I think continuing education is a good thing. And not just because, we're a provider of CE, we meet a lot of people in the industry, 2, 3, 4 years out of the industry, things change, rules change, and there's no mechanism in the past for making sure these individuals are kept up to date with specific rules relating to the investment advisory world. Sorry about that. One of the disadvantages of working home is your dog is here. Sorry about that. Okay, this is really important. Who does this apply to? To whom does this apply to? And there are 2 questions you have to answer. Number 1, is the IAR registered in a specific state? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then it wouldn't apply. But if the answer is yes. And second question, to follow up to the first question, is, has that specific state approved the model rule? And in what year is that effective? Those are the 2 questions. Now, the rule applies to what's called federally covered and state registered. The large investment advisory firms, based upon assets under management, are registered with the SEC. The individuals who work for these firms are IARs. The smaller firms, based upon assets under management, are registered with the states. Their employees are also referred to as IARs, and both would apply. Now, any state that has not yet passed the model rule, that passes the model rule this year, 2022, it would not become effective before January of 2023, and you would have the whole year to complete the continuing education requirements. And lastly, anyone newly registered, it would apply the following year. So anyone registered this year. So if you had a rep that took the Series 65 or 66 this year, the earliest it would apply would be January of 2023, and they have the whole year to do that. A frequent question that comes up is, if someone gets registered as an IAR in December of 2022, could they be effective starting January of 2023? And the answer is yes. It's not based upon the date of registration. It's based upon the year of registration. So some older rules were based on dates of registration. This is based on the year of registration. Hope everyone's doing fine. Any questions so far? I don't see anything in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions you want. Okay. Now, this next bullet talks about 2 types of questions we get asked a lot. What about someone who's duly registered as both a registered representative with FINRA and as an investment advisor rep? That's very possible. Well, they're not completely exempt, but they do get partial credit. Credit will be given for 6 hours based upon products or practices if you complete, now this is very important, if you complete the regulatory element of FINRA CE, which used to be 2 years and every 3 years thereafter, but starting January of 2023, it's going to be annual, and it's not going to be based on date of registration. So starting next year, it'll be an annualized regulatory element. Anyone who has the regulatory element will get credit for the 6 hours of products and practice, but would still need to complete the ethics and professional responsibility. So we have a number of firms that are duly registered where their IARs are only required to take 6 credits. Now, they still need to pay. There is still a payment requirement for the credits. So they would still have to pay $18, 6 credits times $3 each for the to receive that credit. So they don't have to do the CE, but they do have to pay that fee. And this is separate from the firm element requirement that FINRA requires as well. Question I received, let me see this one. Do you think broker-dealers who have affiliated IAs will combine training? Great question. Thank you for asking that. What we've found is that some firms, especially initially, are going to only do IAR CE. Some firms we've spoken to want to probably combine their FINRA firm element with CE with IAR. Since it's so new, I don't think too many firms are doing it this year, but I think going forward, firms will say, well, we think, according to the FINRA firm element, we think we need training on variable products, sales practice of variable products. Maybe we can do it as part of IAR CE and then document with that with firm element. I haven't found too many on the insurance side. It doesn't seem to be that much overlap between insurance CE and IAR CE. That's initially, I do see a fair amount of overlap between FINRA CE and IAR CE. Second question I receive is, what about existing IARs? Will there be a grace period to take the training? The answer to that is no. There is no grace period. It depends upon the answers to those two questions I gave you. And I'll give you an example in just a few minutes. Professional designations. Well, what if I'm a CFA or a CFP or a CPA? The answer is you might be able to receive what's called the ability to double dip. But, and here's a big but, is if something's approved for CE, for CFP, let's say, that provider and course still need to go through IAR CE approvals. And I'm happy to report that STC is now an approved provider for CFP CE, and some of our courses have also been approved for CFP credit. So what we did, I'm sure other vendors might do this as well, is we have 20 courses approved. We take some of, if not all those 20 courses, which have been approved for IAR CE, and also get them approved by the CFP board. So anyone taking any of our 20 courses would get credit for IAR CE, which is mandatory, and CFP. So again, I'm sure other vendors have done that as well, but that's just the policy we're pursuing. The question is, will an IAR be required to take best interest training and product training? The answer is yes and no. There are 6 credits on each side. The vendors submit courses based upon the parameters by Prometric. So are you required right now to take a regulation or best interest training? Currently, as far as IAR CE, the answer is no. It's not a requirement. The requirement is 6 credits each. Now, a state could implement something like that. I will say this as a side note, because Regulation BI is new and constantly changing. I think that IARs could always benefit from a course in Regulation BI. And as you'll see a little bit later, reviewing that course based on changes each year, I think would be an excellent way as well. But again, that's an opinion I have. But after writing a lot of these courses, Regulation BI combines a lot of different things. So, and the insurance rules on best interest are also based upon somewhat Regulation BI, which is an SEC rule. Okay. All right, let's look at the numbers. As of today, and this is current, I checked this morning, that's as current as you're going to be. There are 3 states which have an effective date of January 2022, which means they approved the rule in 2021. It was actually late 2021. Those 3 states are Maryland, Mississippi, and Vermont. Now, 3 states have adopted the rule this year and have declared an effective date of January of 2023. That's Kentucky, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And then 3 additional states have implemented the rule, but haven't officially released a date. We assume it's going to be January of 2023. It would certainly not be this year. Anyone approving it this year, the earliest it will be effective would be January of 2023. So let me give an example based on a previous question. Oh, someone just pointed out Oklahoma has also adopted in 2022. Their first reporting period will be 2020. Thank you very much. I was basing it on the NASA site. I did not see Oklahoma there. Whoever that said that, thank you. If you could let NASA know, NASA website is not current yet. Well, you're even better than they are. I can only base it on what's on NASA. I needed it right. So if you, if I see it in writing, I'll mention it. I'll keep up to date as I can. We always hear a lot of rumors on various states, but I like to see it from the NASA site. Then I know it's official, and I appreciate you letting me know. Okay, so let me give you a quick example. So someone is an IAR, and they're in the state of Maryland. Let's assume they were licensed for 10 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. Let's assume they're not a registered representative of broker deal. They're not duly registered. Even though they might be in the business for 5 or 10 years, they would be required to take 12 credit hours of IAR CE, 6 products and practices, 6 ethics and professional responsibility by the end of 2022. If there was a person that was duly registered residing in the state of Vermont, they would be required to take 6 credit hours of ethics and professional responsibility sometime by the end of 2022. And as more states implement the rule, this number will grow. Will it be all 50 states by the end of the year? I have no crystal ball on that. I assume many more states will implement the rule. Depends on the individual state's requirements. So even though NASA created the model rule, for it to be effective, the state has to adopt those rules. And that's just the map of the various states, color-coded. We made sure the color coding was easy to read. The first time we did it, the color coding was a little different and it wasn't as good. Question, in the Vermont example, would they not take the 6 hours of products and practice? They would have to take 12 or 6, depending upon if they were duly registered. If they're duly registered, they would take 6 credits of ethics and professional responsibility. If they were only registered in IR, they would take all 12 credits. Hopefully that's clear now. If you could just respond, that's great. There was a thanks, so I'm going to say you're welcome. Okay. All right. A few other points. And this is important to a lot of you who might have affiliations or you work through, independent channels. When they created the IAR CE rules, they specifically said the individual IAR is the one that's responsible for ensuring CE. A lot of the other rules, like for example, FINRA rules, it's a firm requirement, not an individual requirement. IAR CE is an individual requirement. However, not all, but most of the firms we've spoken to will be assisting their IARs with this. Some might pay for it. Some may not pay for it. Some may offer, a relationship with a vendor offering discounts. Some might say, just go get it on your own. So there are a variety of things out there, but it seems that many individuals, many firms will be assisting the IARs in some way, shape, or form. Now, as far as excess credit hours, so let's say you have a real go-getter who's required to take 12 hours. And they say, boy, this wasn't so bad. I want to take 3 other courses. I'm going to take 15 hours or 15 credits. Well, the additional 3 credits will not apply for the following year. So excess credits in 1 year will not carry forward to the next year. And again, anyone who doesn't complete the CE by the end of the year will be called CE inactive. I have a separate slide that discusses this a little bit more in detail. And the vendors such as Securities Training Corporation would be reporting the completion information. That's another big reason why broker-dealers and IAR investment advisory firms do not want to get involved in the reporting part, because you are required to report directly to FINRA. And last bullet point, which I think is something I mentioned earlier, duplicate courses are not permitted. Every course has a course ID number. And if someone completed a course with that number in 2022, they could not repeat the same course in 2023. They'd have the same course. Now, STC and sort of other vendors will take an existing course, make significant changes to it or update it, get a new course ID number, and therefore the IR will be permitted to take the course. So for example, we talked about regulation BI of best interest. If we felt, which I think we will, that there are new things people should know, new case studies that need to be disclosed, and we updated the course, we might call it regulation BI2, get a different course ID, and then the person could take that course in 2023, even though they took a similar but not identical course in 2022. I did see a question. If an IAR registered person cancels their registration, i.e. Maryland, Mississippi, Vermont, during the effective year, are they still required to complete their IAR? No, because they wouldn't be registered in that state. But again, there might be some other facts and circumstances I'm not familiar with. But the answer to your specific question would be no. I'd probably want to have a more thoughtful discussion, especially with a compliance professional, before, depending on what other states and things of that nature. But the answer to your question is no. All right. Specific course details. Oh, one person did mention something. Yes, thank you very much for pointing that out. So if they got registered in another state that adopts the rule, they may have to go back and cover those same credits. There's a catch-up. So you have to be really careful, especially canceling. Firms have to be really careful about canceling for the sole purpose of not doing CE. Course details. All right. Each course has to have a minimum of 10 questions per credit hour. The credit hours are defined as 50 minutes, which is similar to what you see in insurance CE. And you have to have at least 2 measurements. So for example, you have to have a new group of questions. And you got to love this. Credit hours are only provided if you score 100%, not 80%, not 70%, like some other CE. You need to receive 100%. So someone can go in and get an 80%, 8 out of 10. They get some new groups of questions, and they might the second time. We've had experience. We had a few firms that were really aggressive and had very large numbers of people in those 3 states. And many of them have already completed partial, or some have actually completed all their 6 or 12 credits. And, getting through the questions are in such a way, if you read the information, you'll be able to receive a passing score. And we have something called forced progression. If you're not familiar with that term, you can't fast forward. You need to click through each screen and review each video. So you can't go to the end and go back. After you complete the whole course, you can go back to it, but you can't fast forward to the end. Yes, there is an unlimited number of attempts. Yes, thank you. There's no limit. That's on another slide. You have an unlimited number of attempts. I know some CE you got to score at least 70%, but you're only given 3 attempts. This is 100%. You could take it 50 times. Right now, very few people have taken it more than just a few and have received 100%. Some people have to take it 2 or 3 times, but it doesn't seem to be that drastic where people are taking 10 attempts. Now, assessments must have a process of authentication. What that means is that after you complete the course, before you take the actual assessment, there's another screen that says, I am the person taking this course. I'm not receiving any help from anyone else, just as an authentication, and that's required via Prometric. And the course provider will provide the roster information, the $3 to credit to FINRA, and we would need to know each individual CRD number. That is the way we report. Everyone has a unique CRD number, and that's the information we would report. Question: are any of the courses reciprocal? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yes, because what happens is that if you're registered in any one of those states, any one of those 3 states, like for this year, then all you need to do is complete the IAR CE for that state. You're not going to have to do it in each individual state. So if you are registered in any one of those 3 states, Maryland, Mississippi, or Vermont, you would be required to do the CE, and they would carry forward if you're registered in all 3 states. So there's no separate requirement for each individual state. Again, if an IAR is registered in any state that has implemented the rule, they need us to complete either 6 or 12 credits. All right, any other questions on this before I move on? I will say this before is when STC realized that people are going to be required to take this, and 6 credits seemed like a lot, the thought process was that if we can make this informative and relevant to their business, if we could create courses that would actually help IARs, I'm sure the firms have great training. We're not trying to supplement any training firms are currently doing, and that's great. But if we could provide some case studies, real life examples, updated information, things of that nature that provided useful information to IARs, they'd say, hey, I got to do this, but I actually learned something that's going to help me. I mean, we're not going to help every person, but if we can provide some useful educational information that would be able to provide good business practices to the IARs, we're big promoters of the industry, in the financial service industry, and education can be a great thing. So if they have to do it anyway, it's advantageous to make it a course that the IARs will get something out of. And, vendors always ask their clients, what courses do you want to see? If they know we have to do something, let's try to do something that's going to be relevant to their careers and their jobs. Okay. How will course completions be reported to FINRA? Good question. Each course vendor will report the completions through either an API or an FTP file to FINRA, providing their CRD number. Good thing about CRD number is whatever firm you go to, you have the same CRD number. So that's what tracks you in your career. And then FINRA has a system called FinPro. It's registration and FinPro. And actually the FinPro system is they're going to use for a number of different things. FINRA is really excited about FinPro. It would show a lot of information. FinPro has both an IAR view and a firm view, and each individual rep can establish their own FinPro account using their CRD number. And the great thing is I've seen some screen mock-ups of this, and it's very possible at the annual SILA conference, which I will be attending. I'm very excited about going to the conference, visiting Seattle. That at the conference, there might be presentations that show the screenshots of what FinPro will look like. I've seen mock-ups before, but maybe there'll be more finalized version, or it might be the way the existing mock-ups looks. So on the IAR view, someone could go in and look at, oh, I'm required to have 6 credits. I'm required to have 12 credits. I've taken this many credits. Here's the course name. Here's the course number. So they'll have that information. If they're duly registered, it will have information on both their regulatory element for the FINRA component, as well as their IAR CE information. So that's the objective there. And FINRA is heavily promoting this as a way for reps to keep track of their own CE. And the firm view would be more like, did the person complete it or did they not complete it? We'll list the courses they've completed, the categories, and the number of credits. Question, can you sign into FINRA Web CRD and look at reports already? It's a statement. You can sign into FINRA Web CRD and look at reports already. Individuals can see their information as well. That is correct. It seems like FINRA is promoting the FinPro methodology pretty heavily as a way where they can do that. For the person who asked that question, can they see the regulatory element if they completed that in their Web CRD accounts? Yes, good, thank you. I am not that familiar with Web CRD because I'm not a broker dealer. So I'm more familiar with the FinPro. That's great. Thank you very much. And one last question while I have you. Will it list the course numbers? It shows what FinPro shows. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's probably a reason why they're pushing or promoting, I don't say pushing, promoting FinPro a lot. Because that takes the rep no matter where they go. Okay. All right. Course completion timing. Now, right now, great news is unlimited attempts. There is no penalty for taking extended time. So if it takes you 3 hours to complete a 50-minute course, so be it. If it takes you 6 times to pass the assessment, so be it. There is no penalty. However, there are some penalties if you fail to complete the number of credits you're supposed to receive by the end of the year. So if your deadline was 2022 and you don't finish the 6 or 12 credits by 2022, hypothetically, you'll be classified as CE inactive, and that designation will appear in both broker check and investment advisor public disclosure, both of those. And the IARs continue doing business, but if they don't complete it by the next year, they will not be able to renew their registration. So if they don't complete it, let's say by 2022, they'll be CE inactive. If they don't do it by 2023, which means they would need to do, if they were supposed to have 12 credits, they would need 24 credits. So you have to, the first courses you take would be the catch up for the years you missed. Now, in speaking to many firms, they are going to put in deadlines for their reps for CE well before December 31st. The firms do not want their individuals, their IARs, to be declared CE inactive. So some firms are looking like an October 1st date. Any stragglers would have to do it, in November, December, and in part of October. But again, it's up to each firm to decide what their policy is. But in speaking to a number of different firms, they're looking at sometimes in some type of fall deadline and not December 31st internally, to make sure their reps get it. So they're not doing everything, the week between December 25th and December 31st. Okay. We've written a few articles on IAR CE. So again, I'd like to open it up. I know I ended a little early. I'm sorry. Oh, by the way, I'm sure a lot of the vendors are doing this as well. But after each individual completes a course, although it's not required, they receive a certificate. And the certificate has their name when they completed the course and the course number. So it's got the name, the individual's name, and the course number. So they have that internally. It's automatically emailed to them. And some firms have asked us, does your system allow an individual, a compliance person, a registration person, a training professional to go in to the system of the vendor and go in and say, okay, I have these 100 reps, 50 have started the training, 50 have not. Of the 50 that have started, 25 have completed, 10 have this many credits. So they can see that information. I know it's available through various like FinPro and WebCRD, but some of the individuals who have asked those questions are not familiar with those systems. Usually you get that from the training professionals who may deal with a lot of different things, but they're not registration professionals. So they're not familiar with what FinPro or WebCRD would have. I'm going to open it up to any questions, anything you'd like to know. I actually have a question for the audience. This is the first presentation I've done on where many of the people could be affiliated with insurance companies as well. Have any of you or your firms have discussed the possibility of double dipping, excuse the expression, between IAR CE and insurance CE? Has anyone done anything in that space? Don't all answer at once. I'm just kidding. Anyone? If I don't see anything, I'll assume the answer to that is no. Have any of you discussed the possibility of having CE credits for both firm element, FINRA CE, as well as IAR CE? Have any of you discussed that internally? Another question. I'm not really getting much response. I apologize. Sorry about that. I'll try another one. Have any of you discussed internally? Again, I don't see your firms. I'm not going to read anyone's name, and it's all typed in. So if you're concerned about that. The third question I had is, besides CFP, sort of a financial planner, are any of your reps who are required to do IAR CE, have they brought to you other designations besides CFP they'd like to see? Oh, I got a new message. Yay, thank you. Yeah, you can send me a chat directly if you want, if you don't want everyone to see it. Thank you very much. I don't see any. I'll try one more. Are there any courses? Oh, here we go. The courses that are proof of both IAR CE and professional designation allow for 70% pass rates, but limits attempts to 3. Yeah, it gets confusing. We've had that discussion. So the person's question was IAR CE, and you're referring to professional designations, primarily, I think CFP was one. Would someone rather score a 70%, but only limited to 3 times? I think what that seemed to have been is the following, and this didn't apply to us. I'll tell you why in a second. What they did was there were courses they felt that professional designations were already offering that could also offer IAR CE. So some firms said, okay, we're using this vendor for CFP CE or some other CE, and now they've just applied for IAR CE credits. They wanted to keep the same standards. what we did is we got our courses first approved for IAR CE, and then we would offer that same CFP the ability to have those same credits, but they still have to get, the 100% of the unlimited tries. And I can, obviously we're only, 5 months into the year, but we do have a number of people that have completed either 6 or 12 credits, 6 mostly because they're duly registered, and we've applied for CFP credits, and I haven't heard any negative points about the 100%. Another message is, let me read these. As a regulator, I might be worried about the possibility of double dipping and have a license, ask the credits if they've done separate programs, systems. I apologize, I'm pretty new to this type of information. Well, when we created our courses, we only created IAR CE. That's what we did. Then, because we had certain clients who also needed CFP CE, we took those same courses exactly the same way, not changing a word or a video or anything. And most of our courses were a combination of text and video, some were pure video. Nothing was just pure text. It was just too dry that way. And then we received the credit for CFP approval, and not all the courses. Not everything is going to be relevant to both. So our initial goal is IAR CE with a sub goal of CFP CE. Here's another question. We have many reps who are insurance licensed. As CE develops, is there an opportunity for courses to be approved for both insurance and IAR CE? I think the answer to that question is yes, depending on the course name. It'd have to be applicable to both insurance and IARs. And the firm would benefit from this. Wondering if there's an opportunity in the field of ethics. Yeah, everyone, you can never have too much ethics training. So we do have some courses that are ethical. All our courses are ethical. We do have some courses where they specifically refer to ethics. And most of our ethics and professional responsibilities courses really have, I would say, half of the content from each of those courses has case studies, which are really, that's what ethics is about, is learning from previous examples what to do and what not to do. So yes, the question is, will the content, though, if the content's for IAR CE, could that also apply to insurance? The answer to that question is yes, but will all the courses, the answer to that is no, because there's going to be certain things that are not going to be applicable in the insurance world. And each state could be different about how it regulates the insurance CE. One good thing about IAR CE is that even though each state needs to approve the model rule, the course approval is only one time by Prometric. So it doesn't have to be approved in all 50 states. The courses don't, just the actual model rule. But I agree with you. It would be great to have some courses where you can apply to both insurance CE and IAR CE, provided they're applicable in both fields. And I'm definitely more knowledgeable on the security side than the insurance side. I know a fair amount about insurance, but nowhere near what I know about securities. As is mentioned before, I consider myself a securities geek. I just went to a recent FINRA conference, and the head of the SEC, Gary Gensler, was there, and I listened to every word very carefully. I was excited to see him, sort of like a person you'd look forward to, the head of the SEC, the head of the CFTC. It was very interesting what these individuals have to say. Whether we agree or don't agree, it's very interesting to listen to their perspective. Any other comments, even a comment to help the other people out? One of the great things about these webinars, they're informational, educational. Sometimes I learn as well. I learned something today as well. Always good to learn. And one of the other great things I like is individuals learn practical knowledge by other individuals doing the same job as they are. I'd imagine many of you are in the compliance registration space. and it could always benefit by more knowledge from knowing about practical application from other individuals in a similar situation. Any other questions or comments? Definitely take a look at the articles we've presented. Oh, I see another message. Hold on. Sorry. Nope. That I've already answered. Someone did say, good job explaining these requirements. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Again, if you want to contact me, my email is trosenfeld@stcusa.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I promise I won't try to sell you anything right away. And as Mary Ellen's pointing out, the webinar is being recorded. So again, I really want to thank the people from SILA to allow us to present this opportunity. I hope to do more if they'll have me back.
You did an absolutely phenomenal job. It was fantastic. Thank you very much.
I try.
We will definitely be inviting you back.
Okay, that's good to know.
You have incredible knowledge on all of this. So
good, thank you. I told you I was a little geeky.
Well, okay. So I do have one question.
Sure.
I am going to ask, what is the acronym, the IAR stand for? Can you say that? Tell me again.
Sure. IAR stands for Investment Advisor Representative. So some people, in casual conversation, you can say whatever you want, but knowing the regulations, I'm not going to correct everybody. So if I meet someone and they say, yes, I say, what do you do for a living? And they say, I'm an investment advisor. I said, no, you're not. He said, yes, I am. I know. The firm is an investment advisor. You represent an investment advisor. You're referred to as an investment advisor rep. Similar to like, if I'm an agent of an insurance company, I'm not the insurance company. I'm an agent of the insurance company. So it's a similar acronym to that.
Okay, got it. Thank you for clarifying that for me, because
I'm here to help.
I will be calling you more then for help.
Good. Well, and again, if any of you on the call, if you're going to be at the conference in Seattle, feel free to introduce yourself to me. And again, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Todd. We really appreciate you joining us for this webinar. And I want to remind everybody that the SILA Foundation was able to bring the webinar to you free of charge due to the donations and support of our sponsors. So if you're not a sponsor for SILA, please consider being a sponsor and donating. A lot of our donations are set up for scholarships for kids who are wanting to join into the insurance industry. So please consider supporting the SILA Foundation. Our webinars and programs are public, so if you cannot donate financially, maybe you could share our invitations with others within the industry or outside the industry to join us on our webinars. And with that, thank you again, Todd. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the SILA Foundation for putting this on. And with that, all of you, please have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us.